Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Another busy day for Palantir since there was a lot of little news segments today, so I'll go over everything here to catch us all up. But looking at the price first, it was quite a volatile day, with the opening of the day shooting up the price deep into the $18 range up to $18.40, but coming crashing back down to the 1760s and closing around $17.80 for the day. Now, at this point, there's a lot of attention on Palantir at the moment, so that usually leads to a lot of short-term volatility. And as a longer-term shareholder, honestly, this is still just noise to me about the news, but I'll talk about my thoughts on this in more detail at the end. Now, for the news itself first, I think what caught a lot of folks by surprise this morning was Palantir's investor relations website posting that they won an Army contract for JADC2. But if you do read further, it appears to be the same $250 million 3-year contract that was announced on defense.gov on September 26, 2023. So the PR itself does also say this was previously announced, so probably just to clear any confusion there for anyone. But at least Palantir is doing the official press release now and seeing exactly what they're doing outside of the AI ML research for this Army. So it's still good to get more details on this as an investor. Then Palantir announced on X their membership with the SOSA Consortium, which is the Sensor Open Systems Architecture Consortium. Basically, SOSA is a group to come up with open standards and best practices when it comes to developing open interfaces, and this is across hardware, software, electrical, and mechanical components for the government. Essentially, they're part of the gang here and making sure that the rules are being developed openly. Then Palantir released more videos on their YouTube channel, one for the IRS, another from Concordance Healthcare, and then Crisis 24. Now, as of this recording, I don't know if they'll be releasing more videos today, but it's still good to see a diverse range of speakers. Now, in-depth wise, I'd say check out the IRS video at least first, because Daryl Walden tells a real good story of the progression on how they started with Palantir and building out a very simple system at the beginning, of course, tying data together that allowed them to actually do work without printing paper. But it progressively becomes more advanced and have different use cases that can spread throughout the organization, from helping them to tie in SBA data, which is actually outside of their department, so I'm sure there's some sort of level of sharing they can do, and then catching COVID PPP loan fraud, since they can match that with the tax information they have from the IRS with the business age and reviews that the SBA holds. And then they also were able to map their case investigations across the country to meet their recruitment and agent deployment needs. So it's a very good presentation in my opinion, although I know a lot of people have a strong opinion on the IRS. Essentially, they're able to do more with less agents nowadays, so with the data being much more accessible to them and much more efficient, I'm not saying you should do anything wrong, but definitely do not take a chance with doing any funny business with your taxes. I'm definitely not going to, now that I know all this about the IRS, but check out Palantir's channel for the full presentation on these three. Now, usually I'd probably wait for the end of the week also to talk about these much smaller news segments that I post, but today's volatility really got me to think about where we've come today as a business, as well as a stock with the whole macro and geopolitical environment. So I haven't gone in depth on my own thoughts regarding the Hamas attacks and Israel, and my personal thoughts honestly do not matter and they shouldn't to you, but to keep it brief from a Palantir shareholder's perspective first, it's obvious which side of the conflict would be helped by the United States and the West and of course Palantir. And as a shareholder myself, I am aligned with this and agree with that mission and position. Now, my personal opinions don't matter per se, as I'm not an expert and not have the full background, nor would I be able to have any effect on how any of this is handled or turns out. But living in the United States and coming from a family of immigrants who left the country with less opportunity to where I am today, I'm extremely grateful to be in such a safe country when compared around the world. But it is unfortunate for the civilians on both sides, and the hostages too being caught up in this situation. You can all agree or disagree in the comments, of course, and history will always point the blame to one side or the other if you look far back enough, but I'm going to keep it there, kept it brief, and I'm just going to leave it there. Now, what all this news means for Palantir and the events happening around the globe is still a long-term perspective that hasn't changed at all, even with the latest events. If you had a similar outlook on the world when it comes to China and Taiwan, as well as Russia and Ukraine, and now Israel and Palestine, there may be short-term bursts here in the market and drops, but the long-term thesis is in the more deglobalized world, and Palantir is going to play a part in running the back end of these different solutions when it comes to the military. Also, commercially, this is still affected as well, with the world being at more risk for these kind of shocks to the system, like airlines cutting off their flights to the hotspot region suddenly. If you think the world will need to be able to handle this more disjointed, unexpected surprises like this, then at a high level at least, you think Palantir as a company would be able to fill in the gap there. But the big question everyone asks is valuation and price. And this is always tricky because Palantir has not put up the numbers on their financial reports officially now, but we always get the new deals and contracts in the news, but we're still waiting for their customer counts to fly or at least see their revenue go up. And to be honest, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Now, I'm still waiting for those customer counts to grow though at a faster rate than they are growing in previous quarters. And my speculation is that we have already reached that inflection point with the amount of PR Palantir is putting out and pushing out their AIP platform with the boot camps, and they're being very public about it. If there's an inflection from the growth rate, then that will be the first big step in turning things around on the record for Palantir financially. The third quarter's numbers should be locked in though now since September has ended, and we'll just have to wait and see at the next earnings. But with everything happening, I'm much more optimistic now for the company and their performance from what I'm seeing, at least from a business perspective here.